Okay, the Magpul OME trigger guard. This is the Magpul original equipment enhanced trigger guard. This one happens to be in black. This is how I've installed the trigger guards on my AR. I haven't had any problems. I know that there's a chance when you're installing these trigger guards that you can bend the ears on the lower receiver, these two ears here and here. And the reason why that happens is because they're not being supported. So when you're hammering this pin in, which you see I've already gotten this pin started. Well, when you're hammering this pin in, if you don't support these two ears, you can actually bend them. So the way I've done it is, of course, I put the trigger guard in place between the two ears. So as I'm hammering this pin in, this supports this part of the ears. And then I use a 2-liter bottle cap to support the other ear. So you've got the ear on the left and the ear on the right. And the right side is being supported by the bottle cap. Now the reason why I do it this way is if you flip it over, the receiver won't lay flat because the bolt catch gets in the way. This way it'll lay flat and you can have a nice flush surface to support this other ear. But you want to make sure you've got this in and that it's lined up. And then as you're hammering the pin into the receiver, you want to check it periodically to make sure you're not bending either ear. You also want to check to see that the trigger guard is in the right position and the holes are lining up. Now I've got this pin, it's almost peeking through, it's just flush, just a little more than flush inside here. So once I get it in a little further, I won't be able to remove the trigger guard. I want to make sure it should true itself up once it's lined up with that hole. It's going to true itself up. Now I'm going to give it a couple whacks. Probably not going to do this whole thing on camera because it's really hard for me to see. So I'll probably I'll get it further in and then I'll come back and show you. Another thing is you want to make sure that it's going in straight. So periodically you want to check it to make sure it's straight. You don't want it going in crooked. It's going to be, it can really screw up. It's hard to straighten it out. I haven't had that happen, but I can just imagine it's not a good thing, and it's probably just going to make things worse if it's going in crooked. Obviously, it goes without saying. Okay, another thing is that you want a nice solid surface. You don't want anything spongy like this gun cleaning pad, because it doesn't allow the hammer blows to transfer onto the pin. It just absorbs them. You'll be sitting here trying to hammer it in, it's not going to be going anywhere. So a nice flat surface. You might mar up the other side of the receiver as you're hammering it down because it's going to move around. If that's an issue, then maybe I don't put something underneath it that you think would protect it. I don't think it really does that much marring. Not to mention this lower receiver here is a blemish lower, and I'm not too concerned with some marks on it. I really don't care about that. So I'm going to give it a couple hits, and then just to show you how hard you need to hit it, and then I'm going to stop the video. I'm going to get it further in, and then I'll come back and show you. So let me get a couple hits in here. It's going to take some force to drive it in. It's not going to just tap in. And then you check it, and then do it some more. And you also want to check to make sure the ears are not flexing. Alright, I'm going to pause this and then I'll come back. Okay. See, I think I've got about halfway through. One thing I forgot to mention is that the kit comes, of course, with the trigger guard, this roll pin, and this tiny little set screw, which will go right in here. I've gotten these trigger guards before, and if I remember correctly, it actually came with the little Allen key you need to put this in, but this one didn't seem to come with it. Wasn't in the packaging and all. So I'll have to use. Either I'll use the one that came with the previous trigger guards, or I think I should have that size already with my tools. So, but this is kind of weird. So keep that in mind if you're going to order this. It's a, what size is this? I don't know. Camera can't see it. I'll let you know after I pause the video. One thing you want to do is, like I said, you're going to check it periodically to make sure that it's going in straight, that the ears aren't getting bent, and then you also want to check the opposite side to see how it's coming through. You can kind of judge how far you have to go. Of course, you're going to keep hammering this in until it's flush. Keep checking, a couple hits, check some more. The main thing is to be patient. Don't rush it. If you see something happening, if it's starting to go crooked, the sooner you notice it, the better, because then you can correct for that. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to pause the video again, and I'm going to see if I can drive this in even further. Maybe even just go ahead and finish that, drive it in all the way till it's flush, and then I'll let you know what size Allen key you need. Okay, you see I've got it even in further. It's almost there. It says to use a 1/8 punch to drive this in, but I'm using a 5/32 punch. Also, the Allen key you need to put in that little set screw is a 1/16, which really is the smallest one that I have. And like I said, I'm pretty sure they came with these before, and it shows you parts that it comes with. So there's no Allen key, but I'm pretty sure they used to have them. So if you're going to get one of these, you need to plan ahead then, because they're probably not going to have that little Allen key. It's also, the further you get in, the harder it is to drive. Also in the directions, it shows that when you're putting in these two, the set screw and the pin, that you're doing it from the right side of the receiver. I don't know if there's any difference. I don't think there's a difference from left to right, but I don't know. I know that it's harder, and this is the way I've done it. I've always done it this way, and I've never had a problem. So if you want to do this, you do it at your own risk. Doing anything to your rifle at your own risk. This rifle I bought is a stripped lower. I've put it all together. I do a function check also throughout, so I'll just to check and make sure that it's still functioning. Still resetting. It does everything it's supposed to do. Well, unless it's cocked, it won't go into safe. When it's unsafe, it won't fire. If it's on fire, it'll fire. It resets. So I do that periodically. Also, I check the depth. I check to make sure that it's going in flush. It's almost there. When it gets this close, I start using the punch. I don't use the 1/8 punch like they suggest. I think it's just a little too small. I mean, I guess once you get it right in there when it's totally flush, if you want to drive it in and go a little deeper, you can do that because it'll actually fit through the hole that roll pin's going through. But for me, it's so small that it's easy for it to slip off. These punches are cupped, so they cup right around the pin. So as I'm driving it in, there's very little chance of it slipping off and scratching up the receiver. All right, so let me once again pause this, and I'll finish this up. Alright, it's in there. It's flush. It's actually a little, I guess you would say, recessed in there. And I'm not sure if you can see. Yeah, you can actually see the other end just below the surface. Alright, and I did it like I mentioned. I used this to get it just flush. This is the 5/32, and then the 1/8 to get it just recessed. So it's nice and recessed, it's flush. Now I'm going to put in the set screw, which goes on which goes in here, and that one's pretty straightforward. Maybe I can actually do that one on camera. The thing is, you lose this. I don't know if you're going to find another one. It's not a standard mil-spec part, so you probably have to search far and wide for this or get it directly from Magpul. So you want to be careful you don't lose this. And here is the, let's see. Alright, so, and it's lined up just screw this in. Let's see. Got it. It's not going to go in unless you get the holes lined up. So you may have to move this around a little. There we go. And we have to pause this for a second. Alright, it just takes a little downward force to get it started because there's really no, as far as I can tell, there's no threads in here, and you're actually threading it. You're actually drilling, if you will, into that trigger guard. And you want to get this up, obviously you want to get it flush. You don't want to over torque it. It's just finger tight. Just use the strength of your fingers. This is pretty boring, so I'm going to pause the video again. Alright. It takes a bit of force, but like I said, just no more strength than no more strength is needed than what you can generate with your fingers. And you want to get it flush, or just a little bit above the flush point. You don't really need an enhanced trigger guard. I like the way it looks. It's more aesthetic than anything else, because the standard military trigger guard, where you put this set screw in, is actually a button. You push that button in and it allows you to swing the trigger guard out. And the only reason why you need an enhanced trigger guard or to swing that trigger guard out is if you're wearing, of course, if you're using this rifle in a cold environment and you have gloves on. So the enhanced trigger guard is supposed to allow you to use this weapon with gloves, and the standard trigger guard has a little button that you can push, probably with the tip of a bullet, and it just pushes down and pops loose, and this thing would just normally just swing out. I guess you could say that putting this trigger guard in is pretty much permanent. It would be kind of difficult to get this pin out because you'd have to drive it out. You'd have to have something support the ears again, but also allow the pin to go through. So once you put this on, it's pretty permanent. I don't know why you'd want to change it unless it turns out that the enhancement, the increased size of the trigger hole where your finger goes, whatever the technical term for that is, trigger hole, wherever your trigger hole finger goes, wherever that is, if the glove for some reason, the glove you're wearing or your hands are just too big with gloves to fit through. But so it's pretty simple. It does take a little bit of courage to do this, because you really have to drive this pin in, and if you're not familiar with the process, you may feel that you may think it may not take very much force, but it does take a considerable amount of force. You're driving it in. It's supposed to be in there tight, and it's in there tight. As you see, it didn't deform any of the ears. Everything came out fine. The function check again, so I got it on fire, so I'll pull the trigger. Hammer goes forward. Cocks. Put it on safe. Won't fire. Put it on fire. Goes forward, resets, fire. So everything's good. That's it. Alright, hope you liked the video. If you liked this video, if it helped you out at all, please just click the like button. I'd just like to know if anybody gets any help from this. I know that